Hey everybody, it's Catherine from Nurse Love 101, and I am here spilling the tea on nursing. I'm excited to be back, and this episode or vlog is about basically should I work for a union hospital? And I think that this is a good topic because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about what it's like working for a union hospital. And I'm going to kind of give you my background and let you know my opinion. So I just want to let you know that this is opinion based with some actual experiences from working in a union hospital. Okay, so I have been a registered nurse since 2011, and I have worked in a nursing facility, which was a non-RN union facility. So let me see, how can I explain this? So there was a union, but at the time there was not any registered nurses in the nursing facility that were unionized. The only nurses that were unionized were the LVNs and the ancillary staff. Then when I left the nursing facility, I went to a hospital. The hospital that I worked for was a union-based hospital. And I'll be honest, I don't think I would ever not work for a union hospital. And I'm going to get into the reasons why. So I'm born and raised in the Bay Area of California. So my mom actually worked for a grocery store when I was growing up that was union based. And she always would talk about the union or like stuff that was happening with the union. And she was a huge union supporter. So when I grew up and I was growing up, there was many times that other companies or even school districts would be on strike or their contracts would go up for negotiation. And my mom would always say, we don't cross the picket line. So one time when I don't know, this was back in the 1980s, there was a huge nursing strike in Oakland, California. And I remember during this time that my mom was like, we're not crossing the picket line. You're not going to school. You're going to do a homeschool basically with a teacher at her house. And that's what I did for like almost like a month. And I just always knew that my mom and our family really valued unions and really valued that solidarity where we knew that people were just trying to make a better living for themselves and they were just trying to fight like greedy corporations or even like school districts, right? Because when we have to think about it, a lot of stuff really boils down to money. um so I kind of always knew that as a nurse, I was planning on working for a union hospital. I will be honest, where I work now is a union hospital. It is one of the biggest corporations in California, or one of the biggest hospitals that has one of the biggest unions in California. Also, in the area that I live in, so I live in the Central Valley, which is very much unionized for some hospitals, but then some hospitals still do not have a union. However, the majority of them do. So when I started looking for jobs, I actually did kind of know which hospitals were union versus which hospitals were not union. And I want to get into the benefits and also the possible disadvantages for some for being in a union hospital. So first of all, most people end up either creating a union in their hospital or joining a union hospital for different reasons. Like, for instance, leadership is maybe doing takeaways or um, maybe not paying them correctly, or they feel like they don't get enough health benefits, or there's areas where they're not getting time off, or there's a lot of safety issues, and safety issues is a big thing that a lot of the union hospitals fight for, is making sure that there is safety measures in that hospital. So, what are the things that I think is a huge accomplishment with the union out here in California, the California Nurses Association, is that they actually were the first union to really fight the state and legislation for nursing ratios. So here in California, which I know not all states, but here in California, most of the time an ICU, it will be one nurse to two patients, unless that patient is for whatever reason very unstable, even more unstable than regular ICU, then it'll be 1-to-1. In the ER, of course, it's 1-to-4. And then also considering what type of patient is it a tele admit? Is it an ICU patient? Is that patient hemodynamically unstable? Like, what is going on with the patient? Then that nurse might be 1-to-1. And in all honesty, sometimes in the ER, it's two nurses to one patient, because let's be honest, sometimes you need a second nurse, right? Also, med surge, it's one nurse to five patients, and that's no telemonitoring, meaning you could have no patients with tele. And then on the tele floor, it's 1-to-4. In PACU, you're usually 1-to-2 patients at the most. And sometimes you're just 1-to-1. Um, I know in peds, it's usually 1-to-4. Of course, if that patient is a little bit sicker than some of the other kids, then yes, it would be different. And then they also have like pediatric ICUs or pediatrics, step down units. Step down units are usually 1-to-3, depending on what's going on with that patient. And there's all kinds of regulations and policies that would make that patient either a 1-to-3 or a 1-to-4, depending on what's going on with the patient. Also, with postpartum, you can have one nurse to four postpartum moms. And I believe you can have each postpartum mom, right, has a baby. And then, well, sometimes depending on the situation, and then you can have one postpartum mom with two twins. And I think you could have, the majority is just two twins. So another thing that I want to talk about is some of the uh, benefits towards being in a union hospital. So for me, the benefits include patient safety. Number one, the union hospital has areas where, if for whatever reason your assignment is not considered safe, you could fill out what's called like an ADO, or you can acknowledge it with the house supervisor and say like, or with whoever's in charge, like, this assignment is not safe. I'm out of ratio and I'm basically refusing my assignment. Do you still have to take care of the patients? The answer is yes, but you're acknowledging that that assignment was not safe. So, for many reasons, this helps the nurses say, like, I was given an unsafe assignment. I'm just trying to keep my patients safe and make sure that nothing happens, like a fall or a med error. And I was working like out of ratio or whatever. So that also protects the nurse, but it also protects the patient, because it makes the higher leadership accountable for the nurse working in unsafe situations. Another thing that I think is very valuable about being a nurse in a union hospital is the patient safety, and also the area of revenue. So let's be honest, nursing is not the easiest profession. It can be very challenging mentally, physically, and emotionally. You might as well get paid well for what you do. It reduces burnout and it also reduces resentment for the profession. So if you're making a good income where you can provide for your family and you're not struggling, it's going to come with more justification of how come you stay in the profession. Because let's be honest, we all care and about taking care of people and we all value our patients, but there are times where this profession totally burns us out. So I believe that if you are making what you are worth and you are feeling like you are being appreciated by your salary or by your base rate, that more likely you are going to stay in the profession. Also, it helps with retention for nurses. Like, so for instance, there's not nurses who are continuing to hop around different facilities. Like, for instance, I might work at one hospital, but I see this other hospital is going to pay me $5 to $10 more. So I'm going to leave this hospital and go there, right? And that's something that happens. It happens pretty frequently. And another thing that happens is a lot of nurses will leave hospitals that are extremely short staffed or if they are non-union. I'll be honest, working at a non-union facility does have some advantages, but it also has some disadvantages, and we'll get into it. Another thing that I think is very important about working for a union hospital is your benefits. Most of the benefits in a union hospital will be more valuable versus medical, vision, or retirement in a non-union hospital. There's also areas for a pension, areas for a 401k, and so on. Another thing that is important about a union hospital is that the union hospital has a contract, meaning that the hospital has agreed that these nurses are in this contract and they can't go outside of that contract. They can't manipulate the contract. It basically says, like, if you ask this nurse to come in for a critically short staffed shift, you're going to pay them like a bonus or you're going to pay them a different rate. So there's areas in the contract that the nurse can go back to as a reference, as a resource, and also the hospital administrator or the charge nurse, if they're non-union, or management has to abide by, or else what the nurse can do is file a grievance. Another thing that is very productive about being in a union hospital is time off. So for some people, this might seem like a pain in the butt because they might not have a lot of seniority, but the nurses with seniority do manage to get time off and also do manage to get certain days off for their vacation bids. Because I'll be honest, seniority is king at a union hospital, meaning if you apply for a position, whoops, there goes my phone. Got to get ready for work, right? If you apply for a position, then you most likely will get it off of your seniority. Some of the disadvantages about being in a union hospital is union dues. Also, there is a political aspect about most unions. Um, it's a it's a corporation. It is a business just like any other entity, and you might not agree with some of the political parties or political movements or areas that the union supports. But for the most part, you'll see that um, they're doing what's best for the patients, the population, and the community versus what's best for you as an individual. Another thing that stands out about possibly being a disadvantage for working in a union hospital is everything goes by solidarity. So, for instance, if something doesn't feel right with you, but the greater group of the union agrees with it, they're going to probably vote yes for it to be in the contract. Meaning, let's say you don't want to work every other weekend, but they said that most people at the hospitals have to work every other weekend. So something like that. Also, what might be a disadvantage for some people is is the time that it takes to be part of the union. So the union will have events, they will have meetings, they will have topics. And in all honesty, it does take a group of people to continue to have a successful union. So maybe for you, it's kind of hard to volunteer that time. But as long as people are keeping the solidarity up and keeping the communication up with the union will be successful. When there's low participation in the unions, you tend to see that the union will start to kind of like fall apart, or there'll be a lot of miscommunication, or there'll be like a lot of fighting amongst each other, which in all honesty is not productive for the hospital or for the group of nurses as a whole. Another thing that might be a disadvantage for some people is you have to understand that the union is there to protect most of the nurses as a whole and also the patients. So you may have felt like you didn't do something wrong on a more personal note, but after investigation, the union might decide that, yeah, you know, it was kind of fair that, let's say, management wrote you up for an incident, or maybe you shouldn't have did something. There's still standards and practice when having a union. The union goes off of the nursing profession's standard and practices. It's not a free for all. You could just do whatever you want, right? So the union can only protect you to so much, right? Extent. So I think most people should know that. So in all honesty, I feel that being in a union is very beneficial. I know there are some people who don't, but most people here in California do want to work for a union hospital, and that's a fact. So that's my kind of notion on it. If the union hospitals weren't doing something right, then people wouldn't have to have unions and they wouldn't want to work for a union hospital. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this. Let me know, what do you think? Are there unions in your state? Do you guys have nursing ratios? And also, would you want to work for a union hospital? Let me know in the comments, and everybody have an amazing day. Bye.